All right. Okay, we're all here. Give just a moment. We'll get some audio going. All right. Let Denise give me about 30 more seconds. I'm going to give you co-host capability. That gives you all the screen sharing you need.
Okay.
All right. Perfect. Denise, the floor is yours.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I
Good
guess,
morning.
how are you today? So we have here Raisha, Nina,
Lisa? Mhm.
Risa, Nina, Patty, and somebody's iPhone on the call. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, why don't we get right into the material? I'm sorry we're starting a few minutes late. Um, can everybody see the business planning workbook on their screen? Okay, good, good.
Yes.
My name is Denise Chambre, and I am an agent and an investor in the Fort Myers and Islands Market Center. And I work Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Lehigh, Estero, Naples. So if you ever have anyone looking over here, I'd love to chat with them. I also teach the Millionaire Real Estate Agent Buy and Hold class. So if I haven't seen you in that class, I'd love for you to maybe jump on that at some point. Today, we're going to talk about business planning. And, you should have received material ahead of time. If you haven't, we don't have that much material, so hopefully you can follow on right on my screen. Part of the pre-work for this class was sort of talking about where am I today? And by a show of hands, and I wish all of those that were blacked out, I'd love to see your beautiful faces and have your video going. Where are you today in terms of business planning? How many of you use a business plan now as a daily, monthly, annual, or long-term guide to running your business? Okay, Sebastian, anybody else? No? Okay, that's okay. Today, that's what we're going to work on, is putting together that business plan. How many of you have created a business plan? Maybe you're not running with it every day, but you've gone through this exercise before. Anyone there?
I have.
Okay. Now, and the beauty with KW is come October, you can jump on these classes. We run a whole lot of them at every market center. So if you've been with the company for at least 1 year now, you would have at least had the opportunity to jump on one of these classes. And I find every time I do this class or attend one, I just get my business plan just gets stronger and stronger. Are any of you new to real estate and new to business planning?
I am not.
You're not? And what about Nina or Patty?
No, I do one every year.
You do one every year. Fantastic. Okay. And is anyone on a team and brand new to this? No? Okay, well, that's good. So it sounds like all of you have been at least through this cycle one time. Would that be correct then?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Now, it's the pre-work, and I'm not sure how many of you had a chance to do this, but we really need to think about our numbers. I mean, with Keller Williams, pretty much everything comes back to numbers. So we're going to start by looking at numbers, and then we're going to end by looking at numbers. Now, I know you're all busy, and I do appreciate you taking the time today to come to this class. My guess is with just, 5 of us on this class, we'll probably be done in an hour and a half. So hopefully you're able to dedicate that time this morning to really thinking about your numbers, thinking about your plan for next year. So the first thing you want to think about is how much money do I really need to pay for my lifestyle and get out of debt? So let's think about maybe 5 years from now, you're living debt-free. You have enough money to fund your lifestyle. What kind of money do you need to get there? And the reason we want to know that, this sort of ties into that big why, is having that life worth living and that life by design. So have any of you thought about really how much money do you need to pay for that lifestyle? Anybody?
I do it daily.
What's that?
I do it daily.
And you do it daily. I mean, right now, does everyone have some level of debt? Or are any of you debt free?
Other than car payment, we're debt free. Well,
Okay.
and a small mortgage, but that's about it.
Okay, nice.
How's that?
Right?
Debt free.
Wow.
Awesome.
So, I want each of you to write that down, that number, because we'll be coming back to this later today. What is that money that you need? And then what are your business expenses? And we're going to spend time today talking about business expenses and also looking at what the model says about business expenses. But do any of you have an idea of how much your expenses are, or what percentage? If you look at your total income that you get, let's say it's $100,000 a year in commission, how much of that 100 then has to go toward your business expenses? Anyone have an idea of that, or that they do a budget or a P&L?
There's that awkward silence.
I know.
Isn't it 30%?
Pardon?
Isn't it 30%?
Right, it's 30% for business expenses, according to the model.
Mhm.
Exactly. And then 30% toward what we call cost of goods sold. And we're going to talk about what the difference is between those. Does anyone know how they're doing against that 30%? No?
Yeah, when I go shopping too much, I have to put a kitchen in or different things. The cost changes.
Right. So, business expenses, what are some of your business expenses? Would this be the dues that you pay to your company, right? What?
Taxes,
Yep, your supplies, your signs,
Promotional marketing.
your marketing, your postcards, your, whatever you're doing to, in order to generate leads. And then your average commission amount. So do you folks know roughly what that is?
yes.
Okay, so what is your average commission?
Down here, well, of course, it depends on price point. For the most part, it's about, give or take, about 9,500.
Oh, that's good. Okay, terrific. Anyone know how many listing appointments you went on last year?
I mean, I track it. Yeah.
You do track it. Okay. Does anyone else track that?
I usually get an answer like not enough.
Yep. Now, it doesn't have to be pretty to track it. I mean, I'm sitting at my desk you know, this, I don't know if you can see this. Oh, let me turn that off. You know, I don't know, I guess I have to put it up here. But here, like this is January. This showed me like how many closings. Sorry, let me just turn. Okay. This showed me like how many closing I had in January, not a whole lot. How many contracts I wrote in January, how many listing appointments I went on in January. And I do this every month. And then, I mean, this is how I keep track. So it doesn't have to be pretty. You just need a way of keeping track. You know, and the number of listings that you sold for the year, the number of buyers that you sold for the year, number of names in my database. How many people have an idea of that? How many, Patty?
I have 10,000 in my database that I touch monthly.
Wow, that's incredible. Wow. So how many, you know, tell me a bit more than about how many deals do you close a year with that many people in your database?
So we actually last month, we're the #1 team in the South Florida region. We did 7 million in volume last month. Of those 10,000, I've been touching them for probably 7 years. Every 30 days, they include farm areas. They include farm areas for agents. And we will close probably 50 to 70 deals this year with 2 people, me and my buyer agent.
Fantastic, fantastic. Wow, that's incredible. And do you have an admin person too?
I have a virtual that works here and there, but nothing, you know, it's just following, you know, what the MREA says. I mean, it's not, you touch your database and, you know, continue to do it and the business comes in.
Yep.
It's not reinventing the wheel.
It's so true. I mean, this is what we're basing it all on today, right? This book. And I've been with KW now for about 6 years. Man, oh man, I wish I had this book 20 years ago. It was out. I mean, it was out in print. I could have picked it up, but none of my old brokers ever mentioned to me, hey, if you really want to know how to run real estate like a business, grab a copy of this red book. And that moves to the next question. Patty just answered for her. Who was on your team? So, you know, is it just you and an admin, a buyer's agent, you an admin and a listing agent? So these are the types of things where we want to kind of know, well, where are we right now? Now, one of the tools that KW has that I love, and of course, you know, as we all move more and more into Command, a lot of this data is on Command, but before Command, we had something called a multi-year trend. Are any of you familiar with this? Yep, okay, Patty, Adrian, and what about the rest of you? Okay, because this is something, yep, okay, I'm getting an Alfredo. This is something that I use religiously. This is mine. I'm a single agent. I don't have an admin. I use a little bit of admin help part-time. And this is what I look at religiously every month. I pull this off of my KW. So like for this year, you know, I can pull off numbers like here are my this is now through September. It's always about a month behind, it lags because they have to wait for the transmittals. In fact, there should be, no, I guess September would be the last one. So, but I can look at this and see, you know, what my closed units have historically been, where I'm at right now. I can drill down by number of listings that I've taken. Here it's 52 for the year. How many listings I've sold? 44. Now this is going to be interesting from a conversion. Later we're going to look at how many listings do you take? How many do you actually sell? Okay, the model uses about 50%. So if you're taking 52, you should be selling about 26 of them. So I'm a little bit ahead of the game there, which I'm happy about. This also shows your buyer. You know, how many buyers have you worked with over the year? And again, why is this going to be important? Later in this, we're going to look at roughly how many listings do you do in a year? How many buyer sides do you do in a year? The basic model is about 50-50. Gary says that for every listing, you should have one buyer. What else does this show? Okay, my average sales price. Now, when I look at this, I feel kind of bummed out, right? Does anyone see why? My average sales price has dropped quite a bit. So for me, for my business plan for next year, one of the things is really focusing on higher dollar volume listings. Okay, I like my numbers in terms of how many listings I'm getting, but I can look here and say, well, geez, I really should have a better average sales price. Okay, it also keeps track of things like your GCI, company dollar, and your agent, like your 1099 income. So all of you should have these. And I really encourage you to look at them. It shows things like, okay, here's my close volume for this year, 15 million. And it shows month over month. So how am I doing 1 month, like from last September, September 2019, I didn't close anything. Okay, this year I closed 3 million. So it shows kind of month over month the change, and also a year over year. So when I look at the last, this year versus 2019, how am I doing in terms of performance? So this is something that I use to analyze my business every month. And now this time of year, when we're looking at business planning, I have a lot of the numbers that I need right here. Okay? So I do encourage you, KW has great reporting, the best. I mean, I've worked for a bunch of brokerages in the 20 plus years that I've been selling real estate. And I really think this is, their reporting tools are just fantastic. Any questions on that? Okay, well, let's move on then. So the things that we're going to talk about really today are the 5 business models, and using those to then develop a plan for your 2021. Sound good?
Yes.
So the first thing we always, we come in every training we do, we come back to our big why. Our big why is what motivates us to get up every day and do what we need to do to get the results. Sometimes we can find that, life gets a little boring in terms of, making those calls every day, going on list appointments. It can become routine. Sometimes you might just not feel like you really want to do it. But that big why, if you can keep that in your head, then that should really help kind of get you over those hurdles and keep striving for however you define success. Now, does anyone want to share what your big why is? No one? Come on, there's got to be someone. Do you all have a big why?
I was going to say, I'll share mine. So mine is just to be able to provide a big life for my family, to more importantly, to provide experiences that will help mold my children into successful young men.
How many young men do you have?
I have 2 young boys. I have I have a 17 and a 14-year-old.
Oh, fantastic. I'm a mom of 3 boys.
It's a lot of energy.
It is. Anybody else? Tell me what their big why is? Well, I'll just talk about mine. And, your big why can change over time. When I first started with KW and, 5-6 years ago, when it was really introduced to this concept of big why, it was really to get out of debt and as well as have the money to really travel with our boys. I lived in Hong Kong for 10 years and I loved being based in Asia and traveling. My husband is a Brit, so he's traveled. So we really, as our kids were growing up, we really wanted to have the money to fund them, to bring them to places like Africa, the Galapagos Islands, Europe. So that was really the big why back then. Now it's sort of moved on. My kids are in college, so it's making sure I have the money to fund their college or, and thankfully with things like Florida prepay and scholarships, that hasn't been very difficult. And now we're transitioning. Like I mentioned earlier, I teach the Millionaire Real Estate Investor class. My oldest son is 21. He's a sophomore in college. And I'm helping him to buy his first investment property over near Florida Gulf Coast University, where he goes to school. And that property is being built. It'll be ready next month. And then he'll be moving in with 3 roommates. And the money he'll be collecting from his roommates will pay the mortgage. So we're teaching him about investing. And we'll do that with our other 2 boys. We're helping them with the mortgage, the down payment. They'll pay us back someday, but that's kind of really what we're using. That's kind of our big why now, is to teach them more about how to invest in property. So that big why can be very situational as you move through life. But that's something, if you really want to maybe think about every year, kind of think about what is that big why, how was it changed as you've achieved success. So part of your homework is to take a couple minutes and think about that and why that big life is important. And as Gary always says, aim higher than your goal. So in this case, if your goal was to climb Mount Everest, which is 30,000 feet above sea level, maybe that's your someday goal. I want to climb Mount Everest. Maybe your 5-year goal is to climb a mountain that's in the US. Some of the tallest mountains here are around 15,000 feet. So that might be your 5-year goal. And even if you never make it to Everest, but if you make it to one of those mountains in the US that's only half the height of Everest, you're probably still better off than about 99% of all mountain climbers in the world. So he always says, shoot high, aim higher than your goal. So if your goal is to make 500,000 in gross commission income a year, set your models for making 1 million. That'll kind of help pull you through that 500 to get you closer to that 1 million. So always set a higher goal that'll help pull you through to that actual goal that you want to achieve. Make sense? So this is something that you can think of as well as you're doing some homework. Really, what are those goals? And your goals can be for business. They can be for health, your personal finances, your spirituality, your family. So you can have, a plethora of goals. And that's something that a lot of successful people every year kind of take a break and think about all those different parts of their lives and set goals to try to achieve more success in those different areas. So we have 5 models that we're going to talk about today. First is the economic model. And this is really understanding how much net income you desire, and then using the lead generation model because in order to get that net income, you're going to have to generate enough leads. So this gives you an idea, well, how many leads do I really need? And then you want to hold on to that money. I mean, there were cases of people at KW that have made $500 or $1 million a year, but have spent it all on stupid stuff like, you know, the brightest and shiniest thing out there. And at the end of the day, haven't really had any net income. So it's really budgeting your expenses so that you can get to your net income. And then the next model is having that organization, the talent behind you to help leverage your time. And then finally, expansion model, where you're perhaps looking at a different, moving into a different market center. Now, we're not going to really spend a lot of time on expansion today. We'll just introduce you to it. We're really going to spend more time on these four models, and they really all interrelate with each other really nicely. Have all of you read the MREA and understand a little bit on these models? Has anyone not looked at the MREA before? Patricia, you've read it? Yeah, you've read the MREA?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
My goal is to fully understand the models. I think I'm somewhat getting there.
You know,
Why I'm here today.
you know, my book, I don't know if you can see it here, but it's kind of covered in coffee.
Mhm.
You know, I've got a lot of stuff highlighted. I've probably read this like 20 times. And, you know, every time you read it, you learn a little bit more, you do a little bit more. So, and you get more clarity. But, you know, I don't know when I'll feel like I've mastered it, but, you know, it's definitely worth reading and rereading and to head toward your own set of mastery. So let's start with the economic model, and we're going to actually do this a little bit later for your own business, okay? Because this is really the main, the first step in developing your business plan is understanding the economic model. And it starts with, what do you want for your net income for the year? Now, in this model, the one that Gary uses, he uses $1 million in net income. And that's because, you know, the book is called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Later, we can put in whatever net income you want to achieve. However, we need to realize for whatever net income we want to achieve, our gross commission income needs to be higher because we have these pesky little things called expenses and cost of goods sales. Now, typically, Gary would say that your net income is about 40% of your total gross income. Okay, so if I take the 20, and if you all have a calculator, if you take the 2,500 in gross commission income and multiply it by 0.4, you get a net income of 1 million. Everyone see that? Another way, if you know what your net income is, so let's say your net income is 1 million, I'm just taking off the zeros. If I divide that by 0.4, I get what my gross commission income is. That's going to be important to remember that math later, because later we're going to look at what net income do you want next year. And then in order to achieve that, what kind of gross income are you going to have to aim for? Okay. We'll look at what these operating expenses and cost of goods sales are later. Okay. Now, if my total gross commission income has to be 2.5 million, I then want to divide that by my average commission amount. So one of you said earlier, your average commission is at about 9,000. Okay, in this example, it's just over 7,000. So if I take the 2.5 million and divide it by 7.150, I get 350 units sold. Okay, everybody with me so far? I then need to look at, well, how am I going to sell those units? Are they all going to be listings? Or is it all going to be buyers? Or is it going to be a combination of sellers and buyers? Okay. Now, in the model, he's using 50% will be sellers and 50% will be buyers. In my personal model, I just kind of connect with sellers better than buyers. So I typically work with a lot more sellers. So my seller side will be higher. Mine's going to be more like 70-30, okay, or 60-40, based on my history. But for the model's purposes, we're going to use 50-50. So what does that mean? If I need 350 in total for the year, I'm going to say 50% of that will be here, 50%. So if I take 350 times 0.5, I get 175. So I need to sell 175 listings, and I need, in this case, to have 175 buyer contracts. Everyone still with me?
Mhm.
Okay. Now, am I going to sell every listing? No. Am I going to close every buyer that I write a contract for? No, right? Things happen. So, they don't get financing, the inspection goes crazy, they decide they want to buy in a different area, things happen. So in this case, we're using a 70% conversion rate. And your numbers may be higher or lower than that, okay? So if it's 70, what I have to do then, so on the seller side, okay, I want to sell 175. However, I'm only going to convert 70%. So I need to actually get more listings than that. So what I do is I divide that by 70. So it's 175 divided by 0.7, and I get 250. So I need 250 listings in order to sell 70% of them, so that I actually end up closing 175. Everyone with me? Okay, so I need 250 listings. So I need to go and get 250 listing contracts signed. Now, when I go on a listing appointment, am I going to get everyone signed? I wish, but no. In this case, they're using 75%. So they're basically saying out of 4 listing appointments, they're signing up 3. Now you'll have to go back and look at your numbers. That's a good conversion rate. Okay, are you converting that many? But we're going to use their numbers. So if I have 250 appointments or listings, how many appointments do I need to go on? Well, let me divide that by 0.75. I have to go on 333 appointments in order to sign up 75% of them, which gets me to the 250. And then I'm planning on actually selling 70% of those, which will get me the 175 listings sold. And then from there, I can look at, well, what does that mean every month? We'll take 333 divided by 12. I need 26 or 27 a month. And I can divide that by 4. Geez, I need to go on 7 list appointments a week. Now, at this volume, at $1 million in income, you're not doing it all alone, right? You're going to have a listing specialist. You're going to have, and it's the same numbers over here on the buyer side. So I need to go on 7 buyer appointments a week. I need to convert 70% of those into buyer loyalty agreements. I then need to sell 70%, which will give me my 175. Okay, so that's the math. So this gives you, this is how the economic model works. So later, we're going to be looking at your own, what is your own net income? What do you want next year? $500,000, 250,000? What is your net income? Based on that, what should you plan on for your gross commission? And then all of these numbers are based on achieving your gross commission income, not your net. Now, if your cost of sales is less than 30%, or your operating expenses are less than 30%, even better, you'll be ahead of the game, right? Like if this is 40%, let's say the net income was 50%. So if your operating expenses and cost of sale were 50% and your net income was 50%, then what do I need for a total GCI? Can anyone give me that math? So you're able to keep, rather than spending 60%, spending that money, you only spend 50. So as a result, you don't have to generate 2.5 million in gross commission income. You can generate less. Does anyone know what that number would be? Well, if I take 1 million, and I'm just rounding it off, and I divide it by 0.5, it's 2 million. And then now I can work on these numbers on the sell and buy side based on only needing to generate 2 million because I can control my expenses a little bit better. Now, if you're a single agent, this cost of sale is more like referrals. Like let's say you're paying out a 25% referral for a business opportunity, or you have a buyer agent that's on commission, or a listing agent that's on commission, then that's what this is really all about. If you're a single agent, then this is, of course, just really going to be whatever referral income you pay every year. So that could be a whole lot less. Your expenses might be 30, they might be a little bit higher. So, this might be 40%, but this might only be 10%. So these numbers could change. Okay, so that's where looking at your old numbers and having a P&L come in handy for when you're planning. But this gives you, once you have this model, you now have a great basis for planning. What do you need to work on? If your conversion rate is 50% on either side, and the model is 70, are there classes you could take to help you with conversion? Of course, you know, either we have Ignite, we have Win with Buyers, we have Win with Sellers, we have Scripts, we have Bold, we have coaching. So there are lots of ways that you could say, well, geez, I'm at 50. You know, if you're at, let's say here, you're only converting, you go on 4 listing appointments and you're only converting 2 on average. So on this example, if I need 175 listings and I'm only converting 50, I'm going to divide that by 0.5. I have to go on 350 seller appointments rather than 250. So, do I want to spend time and money on 100 more appointments? Maybe I'd be better off learning how to convert better. Okay. So these are the types of things that we want to look at. What are our actual numbers so that we can actually convert? Any questions on this? No? Okay, let's move on. So based on, okay, I need, in this scenario, 333 seller appointments. And I need 357 buyer appointments. Okay, everyone see that? Well, where am I going to get those leads from? Here, you know, this comes out of the MREA book. It's been updated a bit. But here are different ways that you can generate for leads. You know, the good old tried and true and tested FSBOs and expireds, circle prospecting, you know, community outreach, getting into better relationships with builders, banks, maybe a financial planner who might have people that want to buy investment property, investors, maybe teach and do a class on investing in real estate, networking events, and so on. So this is really prospecting. Now, prospecting is a more intense type of lead generating, but it's usually less money to go out and do these types of activities. It's time, but not necessarily a lot of money in terms of expenses. Marketing is less time, but more money. And anything from pay-per-click, SEO. Are any of you using Command for Facebook leads? Anyone doing that? It's a very inexpensive way to generate leads. No one? Okay. You can, you know, postcard, just listed, just sold. And then there's things that have a little bit of element of prospecting and marketing, like farming, holding events, having some sort of networking events. So you need to, as part of your business plan, if you know you need, once you know how many seller appointments you need and how many buyer appointments you need, you then want to think about, how do I want to lead generate to get those leads and get them into your database so that you can then really communicate with them. But you really always want to be feeding your database. So you have to think about, well, how do I want to lead generate? What historically Gary has seen is that people tend to get the most bang out of focusing on 4 lead generating activities. So take the 4 that you like the best and master those rather than doing a whole host of things. Really focus and master. Now, for me, what do I focus on? Expireds is a big one for me. Expireds and FSBOs, and referrals, and my sphere of influence. Okay. So those are my 4. I do very little in terms of postcards or marketing. I like to pick up the phone and make calls. And, you know, that's kind of that's kind of my zone. But everybody has their own zone. But your marketing plan should really talk about how are you going to master those 4 in order to get those appointments that you need based on that economic model. Does anybody want to share their 1 or 2 or 4 that they like to do?
I
For me,
can.
social media.
I can.
Okay.
So mine is postcards, client events, neighborhood farming. Then my spare is my top 4.
So postcards, networking events, your sphere. Now it's funny, you know, you and I are doing a very similar volume, but we're sort of getting that volume in different ways. So that comes back to the thing is you've got to pick your 4, and the 4 that work for you might not work for somebody else. So you've got to master your 4, and you know, and that'll really help you with success. What about the rest of you? What are you doing for your lead generation? No one wants to, that's
Social
silence.
My biggest one.
What, Patricia?
Social media is my biggest one.
So are you using command Facebook ads?
No, I personally I work my sphere of influence, my friends and family that are on there. I do kind of like the 5-5-5 on my social media. So I effectively reach 15 people per platform. So it's 5 likes, 5 comments, 5 messages. And I'll do that usually on my Facebook and my Instagram.
Fabulous. Okay, good. Anybody else? No? Well,
This is Edwin. Can you hear me?
yes, I can.
Oh, okay. This is Edwin. I'm fairly new to Keller Williams, but what I use for my 4 are expired, definitely social media, either through command or just directly from the platform itself. Sphere of influence, so friends and family that I already know, and door knocking. Those will probably be my top 4.
Fantastic. And I love it. Everyone kind of has a different way of doing things, and we're all, you know, being successful. So that's fantastic. So later we're going to be doing your economic model. We'll be putting in our lead generation activities. And we do that in something called a 411. Has anyone ever looked at a 411 or know what that is? Right, Adrian does. Yes. So it's 4 weeks. Okay, 1 month, 1 year. So it's talking about the goals. What are your goals? And then what are you going to do each month? And then how are you going to break that down each week? So we'll look at that a little bit later. And that's how we build up our business plan. Now, the next model is the budget model. Who here actually has a budget for their business and a P&L? If you don't, you know, it's hard to manage expenses or understand your expenses if you're not, you know, planning for them and then reviewing how are you doing against them. Now, we talk about budgeting in this class for your business We also, when I teach the Millionaire Real Estate Investor, we talk about, budgeting your personal life too, so that you have money set aside that you can then invest in investment property, which then becomes mailbox money. You invest in property and every month you're getting rent checks. So, it's good to get into practice of budgeting, not only for your business, but for your personal life as well. Here, we can see what the benchmarks are based on your gross commission. So if your gross commission is about 150,000 a year, then your cost of goods sold is probably about 13%, because you're not going to probably have the buyer agent or the listing agent to help you. You're probably working as a solo agent with a GCI of 150,000. So your cost of goods sold is probably more like referral, when you've paid out referral income. Okay, but as your commission income increases, now you're paying commissions to buyer agents and to listing agents. So that cost of goods sold is going to increase. Gary gives some best practices here too. He thinks 25% is a good cost of goods sold, and 25 to 30%. Your gross profit. So your gross commission income minus, let's say you're a solo agent over here, minus the referral income. So maybe, you had a bunch of people refer you business, so you had to send them 25% of that gross commission income. So what you're left with is your gross profit, which in this case, as a solo agent, out of the 150, you were left with about $130,000, or about 87%. Now, how do we get 87%? Does anyone see that map? Let me just show you. So if I take 130, so the gross profit, and I divide it by the gross commission income, that's 87%. Okay, so the gross profit divided by this is about 87%. It's just another way of looking at the number. If this is 100%, this is 87%. And then we look at our expenses, and these are the things like your signs, your postcards, your office supplies, your rent, your phone, your utilities, maybe your auto expenses. So it's all those things that basically you're paying whether you do a transaction or not. Your admin help. So these are things you're paying out, where this is more things that you're paying out on a per transaction basis. This is the things that you're paying either way. So like, for example, if you know your expenses are $57,000, you know that just to break even, you need to sell $57,000 worth of commission just to break even for the year. And then here's your net income. So how do we get that? Well, it's the gross income minus your cost of goods sold minus your expenses is your net income. Everybody see that? And these are the kind of numbers that you need to get comfortable with to really manage your business and do the things like Gary says, play red light, green light with your expenses. So he gives you some benchmarks or some best practices. So if your gross commission income is 340, then these, you're probably going to have about 26% and cost of goods sold, and probably about 36% in expenses. And your net income, you're gonna, at the end of the day, what can you put in your bank account? About 129,000 out of the 340 that you made. So we'll look at this in a few minutes as well in more detail for your own business. Here, so out of the 30% of the expenses, Gary even breaks, so Gary breaks this number down for you in more detail. So this is looking at, you know, where this 30%, so this is at $1 million, okay, at $1 million right here. He's looking then, I guess it would be this one right here. He's looking at what that 30% really is made up of in more detail. And then from there, another way of looking at this is a profit and loss. So again, it's taking your total income minus the cost of goods sales, which we said is about 30%, minus all your expenses. And that shows you what your profit is for the year. Now, you might have some other income, like if you're part of the profit share at KW, getting your unfair share, then you might have other income like profit share income. And then we also have to remember, before we spend everything we made, is let's make sure we keep some aside for income taxes. I can't tell you how many agents forget about that. And then, you know, come April, they're wondering, well, how am I, you know, I made a lot of money, but, you know, I spent it all. So now they're worried about their taxes. So you always want to make sure that you're keeping money for your taxes. Any questions on this? And then the last model is really the organizational model. So here, typically you start out, it's you, and then the path that Gary proposes is your next hire be an admin to help you leverage your time, that they do the MLS input and the postcards. So get an admin. From there, the next hire would be a transaction coordinator. And then from there, you can branch out into listing and buyer specialists. Now, we're not going to spend a lot of time today on this. If you really want to grow a team, I would suggest that you go to classes like Career Visioning, which will help you to understand how to grow and how to hire, because a bad hire can really set you back. So you really want to make sure that you get a good hire, especially that first hire, that admin person. But this is just to sort of introduce you to the way that you can grow your team so that you can achieve that $1 million in net income. So this is that 411 that we talked about. We're going to, after this, we're going to then look at what is the net income. What does that mean in terms of how many contacts do we need in our database? How many units do we need to sell? How many listing appointments, buyer appointments on an annual basis? So it's all the information that we calculated up here, but now we're going to do it for ourselves. And then we're going to look at, well, if we have an annual goal, what does that mean in terms of monthly and weekly? So this really is looking at the economic model and the lead generation model, the budgeting, and the profit and loss. And then this is looking at how do you leverage yourself towards the organizational model. So that's all right here on this one worksheet. And this, here's another example of how this can look. And this again could be used not only for your business, but for all areas of your life. So does everybody have a calculator? Okay, everybody else? So let's take a moment then and write down, get out a piece of paper, write down your net income goal for 2021. I'm going to give you all a minute to do that. Okay, has everybody done that? Anyone want to share what theirs is?
$220.
220 is your net income. Okay, anybody else? So, okay, well, I know you're all being a little bit shy. So you're going to have your net income goal. Now, how do we convert that into a gross commission? So Adrian wants to net in his pocket, in his bank account, $220,000. How much does he need to sell? Well, assuming his operating expenses are 30% and his cost of goods are 30%, then his net income will be the profit, which will be 40%. So he's going to spend 60%. So his net income will be 40% of whatever that gross commission is. So to figure it out, if I want to net 220,000, I divide it by 0.4. So Adrian needs a total gross commission of 550,000. So can everyone take a minute, take your net income and divide it by 0.4 to get how much you're going to have to achieve in gross commission income. And can you let me know when you've done that? Patricia, did you get yours done?
Sorry, I just sat back down. You said to divide it by 40?
But yeah, by 0.4 or by 40, either way. So what, for example, what do you have for net income for the year?
So 150?
Okay. So we'll take 150.
Mm-hmm.
I always take off the last 3 zeros, okay? I'm going to divide that by 0.4.
It's 375.
375, okay? Now, Patricia, you might want to say, well, what are my operating expenses? What am I planning for then? And my cost of goods sales. So if I multiply this by, the operating expenses should be roughly 30%. If I take the 375 times 0.3, you should have about 112,000 in operating expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And the same amount in the cost of sale, which would be those referrals and so forth. Now you might say, well, geez, I'm not going to have as high of a cost of sale. So you might even be ahead of the game.
I usually only include the cost of sale as the cap and the royalties, and maybe the TC. That's about it.
Right, so the cap and the royalties, yes, that would be a cost of sale for sure, because you're paying that on a transaction basis. So you would have your cap and the royalties. And then what about, do you ever have any referrals
So yes, I do have referrals every now and then.
Okay.
Most don't have it. So obviously I know I need to factor that in. How can I calculate a percentage based on that?
You would have to sort of look at what you've done this year in terms of your P&L and
Okay,
get an idea of how much you've spent.
okay,
But the reality is, if overall, according to the model, if you can keep all your expenses under, 60% or below,
mhm,
then you're following the model.
okay.
Okay. Now, so we said, okay, so your total, what did we say your total GCI needed to be, Patricia?
375.
375. Now, what is now if everyone can, let's move down to average commission amount. I'm going to keep using you, Patricia, as the example. What is your average commission amount?
Right now it's about 8,200.
8,200?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to divide this by 8.2. So that says you're going to need to sell 45 units to achieve your goal. Is that doable?
That's aiming high.
It's doable. You can do that. Okay. Okay, so has everyone else plugged in their average commission to get their total units sold? Okay, so from there, let's kind of follow this down then. So Patricia, you need to sell 45 or 46 units. Okay. Now, roughly how many buyers versus sellers do you work with each year?
So I'm doing 60% sellers and 40% buyers now.
Okay, so you're going to put a 60 over here.
That's 27.
And then a 40 over here. And you've already done that math. So times 0.6 is 27, exactly, on the sell side. Has everyone else put in a buyer? Well, this is really a seller listing sold and a listing sold and God, that's weird how they have this. How many listings you're going to sell and how many buyers you're going to put under contract and close? Has everyone else done that? And if you don't know your number, use 50-50. Okay, so what is your conversion rate in terms of how many listings? If you took 100 listings this year or in 2021, how many would you sell versus expire, them becoming expired or withdrawn or terminated?
I'd say about 80% if I look at just this year.
Okay, 80%. So I'm going to take the 27 and divide it by 0.8. So that's 34 listings that you need. You need 34 in order to sell the 27 based on an 80% conversion. Has everyone else put in their conversion rate? Now, in the model, they use 70 and 70 on both sides. So you can always use that if you don't know your number. Now, the next thing then, how many appointments do we need to go on? Now, Patricia, if you go on 100 appointments, how many are you actually going to have them sign a listing contract?
I'd say that's at 75.
75, okay. So we're then going to take the 34 and divide it by 0.75, and we get 46 appointments needed. Did everyone else put down their conversion rate? The model is using 70, was it 70%? Let's take a look.
Yes, I think I had 70.
Oh, they were using 75 there on
that-
this side, okay. Okay, so what does that mean then? How many do you need to do a month? So we'll take the 45
So I need 4.
and divide it by 12, 4. Now, I'm going to go back to the 45. Some people will say, well, geez, I'm going to take time off in the summer. I'm taking holidays off. I'm really not working 12 months. I'm working 10 months. A 44, that's like a scam call. Okay, so you might say, well, I'm only going to work 10 months this year when I think about my holidays. So in that case, I divide it by 10, which is about 4.5, 5 listings a month. So you can do it by 12 or by 10, but we'll go back to the 12. So that's 3.8 a month. So how many a week? It's about what, 1 a week?
I mean, if we round it up to 4, yeah, 1 a week.
1 a week, okay. So that's your seller side. Now, why don't you take a moment and fill in your buyer side and tell us what that came, and then we'll go through your numbers on that. And if everyone else can take a moment and do the same thing, and if you're having any trouble with the math, let me know. Let's talk about it now.
Hey, Denise.
Yes.
Hi, this is Jay. I actually just popped in. Is there a downloadable version of this PDF?
There is. Adrian, do you have it? It should have been part of the Zoom call, like the pre-meeting info.
Yeah, so we put it up in the chat towards the very top. If you Joe, if you scroll up through the chat, you'll find it in there. Otherwise, I'll put it in towards the end.
They log in after you did it.
Yeah, because when I click
Okay,
on
I got it.
chat-
I'll put it in again.
Okay,
I got it.
awesome. Thank you.
Now, Jawed, have you done your numbers, or do you want us to do them with you now?
Who, me?
Yep.
Yeah, I'd love for you to do it with me. That would be great.
Okay. So in 2021, what do you want as your net income after you've paid all your expenses? What net income do you want for the year?
After all expenses, I mean, I know the number I want to say, but I don't know if that's practical.
Think big, baby. Think big. Tell us
I'd
what
say
it is.
100K.
100K. Okay, so that's what you want. So what the model says is that your expenses are going to be about 60%. So you're going to have that 100K, but you're going to have expenses. So then we have to look at, well, what do we really need to get in terms of a gross commission? Okay, and the way we figure that out, if on average your expenses are 60%, and they might be higher or lower for you, but if I take 100,000 and divide it by 0.4, then you're going to have to generate $250,000 in commission income in 2021. And I know you can do it. Okay?
Okay.
Now, let's take that number, write that down. Roughly, what is your average commission that you get?
I believe it's 9K.
9,000?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, that sounds about right. So we're going to divide that by 9, which means you need to sell 28 units in 2021. Is that doable?
I believe, yeah, that actually is lower than I thought it would
Okay, good.
be.
Now, what percentage do you work sellers versus buyers?
Well, I'm fairly new. I haven't worked either of them, but I would like to work sellers more than buyers.
Okay. let's start, the model says 50-50. Let's start with that because it says for every seller, you should get a buyer. So let's just use 50-50. So
Okay.
this would mean on going down this sell side that 0.5, so you need basically 14 listings sold in 2021. Okay. Now, have you had any listings this year?
Negative.
Okay. Okay. So what you're going to need to think about then, if you want to sell 14 listings, there's always going to be some that are, won't sell. Either you're going to find out that the seller was crazy, they had a great offer and they didn't take it, or, a lot of stuff came up during the inspection and the seller didn't want to sell after all and the buyer walked, or the appraisal came out crazy low. So not every listing is going to sell. Now, the model says that about 70% of your listings should sell. And to help you to get there, you're going to want to take classes on like winning with sellers, to help you with that conversion, understanding what to say to sellers, how to price them right. So let's say 70% are going to sell. So that means 30% aren't. So you're going to need to divide this by 0.7, which means you basically need to take 20 listings.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you're going to have to get 20 signed listing contracts. Now, you're going to find out, though, when you go on a listing appointment, you don't sign every contract. Like I went on one yesterday. It was an expired. She didn't want to lower the price. Her thing was it was all the fault of the last agent. I said, I'd love to work with you, but you're not going to lower your price. I'm from the Northeast. I got to be honest with you. I don't think you're going to sell. So if you want to sell in the future, I'd love to chat with you. So I walked away from that listing. Okay. I might have another listing where we just don't hit it off. Okay. So you're not going to get every contract signed. Now, the conversion rate that the model is using is 75%. So out of every 4 listings you go on, you should get 3. Okay, so we're going to divide this by 0.75. That means you're going to need to go on 26 list appointments. Okay. And if you say, well, geez, my conversion's only 50%. Well, we have a lot of training at KW that'll help you in order to get your conversion up. Okay, from Ignite, Bold, there's lots of it out there to help you get your conversion up. So you need 26. Now you can take that and you can say, well, that means if I divide that by 12, you're going to need just over 2 listings selling a month.
Say that. I'm sorry, you cut out. Say that last part again.
You're going to need to sell 2 listings a month. Excuse me. You're going to need to go on 2 seller appointments a month. If you go on 2 a month, that will get you to where you need to be. Assuming your conversion is 75% of having them sign the contract, the list contract, and then out of that 75% that you actually sell 70% of them.
And would you say that is a fair conversion rate for someone that's newer? Or would you say it's a lower conversion rate for starting?
You might want to plan more like 50.
Okay, so 1 out of 2.
Right, you might want to plan, I don't know what the rest of the group would say, but I think in my early days, I probably did about 50%.
That sounds, yeah, I think it's better to do that, because then if it's better, then that's even then that'll be even better. I'll go on more
Exactly.
appointments.
Now that's the sell side. For you, since we're used 50% sell and 50% buy, it would also need that you would need to work with 2 buyers a month. Okay, if you keep the 50-50, but you can go back later and play around with this and make it, 60-40, 70-30, you can do whatever you want. Now, Patricia, are you still
Sure.
here? Patricia,
Yes.
did you go down your buy side?
Yes, I did.
What did you come up with?
So with the buy side, it came out to 30 needed. That's 3 a month. And so I just made it 1 a week regardless.
Perfect. Okay. So how do you two feel? I mean, is that something doable?
Yes, makes very much sense. Now, my other question to you is the last block of that pyramid. How many contacts to get one seller appointment?
Perfect. We're going to talk about that next.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Perfect.
Now,
so far so good.
does anybody, so that's the beginning of your business plan for 2021. Patty, or is it Karen, Dolores, do any of you want to share what you're coming up with? Or do you have any questions on this part of the business plan?
No, I'm just trying to try to get it to sink in, but I'll figure it out.
Is there anything we can help you figure out?
I haven't done much, so it's kind of hard for me to really get a projection of what I'm doing. So that's where I have to start. So that's why I say I'll figure it out, because the model is good, but I just have to figure my numbers from my end first.
Right. And you might want to just start with those basic, Gary says ink makes you think. Putting it down on paper is really that first step to moving forward. So what I've learned in this business too is don't wait until everything's perfect. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. Just do it. So even if you put down numbers and they're not right, if you want to follow the model numbers, it's just get something down and get yourself started. Make sense?
Make a lot of sense.
Okay. Patty, what about you? Did you want to share anything?
Actually, I'm going to be meeting with my one buyer's agent the middle of November. We're actually looking for a couple more buyer's agents, so I really want to get that down before I put numbers. But we are going to stretch our numbers for 2021 because we saw what we could do in 2020 with COVID. And if we're doing the same activities, there should be no reason why we can't push our numbers for next year.
Right. Okay, fantastic. So, okay, now, Patty, she might have left.
No, I'm here.
Okay, so what were what were your sell side and buyer side appointments?
I don't have those right in front of me right now, to be honest.
Does anyone have what they need for sell and buy side appointments? This bottom line?
I can tell you what 2020 was.
Sure.
All right, hold on 1 second. So our buy side was 50 and our seller side was 55.
Okay, 50 and 55. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just say for fun that it's 100. Okay. So you needed 100 appointments in 2020 to achieve your goal.
Yeah,
Okay. What was your goal for net income?
500,000.
Okay. That's what I always use as well. That's what I plan on. So, okay. Now, we know that we have to feed our database to get those leads that we then can convert into buyers and sellers. Now, does everybody know how many people they have in their database at the moment? How many?
Me, I have just under 200.
Under 200. Okay. And Patty, what did you have? It was a lot. Was it 18?
I have 10,000.
10,000?
Mhm.
Okay. Now, what the rule of thumb is that it's about what Gary says, 6% of the people in your database are going to buy or sell or refer business to you this year. Well, let me start over. 6% are going to buy or sell or refer business to an agent. Okay. However, out of that 6%, you're probably only going to get half of it. So they're going to buy, but they're going to buy with another agent, unfortunately. They're going to sell, but they're going to sell with another agent. So Gary would say that basically 6% are going to buy or sell or refer business, and you should capture at least half of that. Some of you might do better. So for Patty, if she has 10,000 people in her database times 0.06, that's 600 times about half of that. So about 300 of them should be giving her business. Now, Patty can say, well, gee, only 200 did or 100. So then one plan for Patty will be how to get more conversion out of her database. Okay. Now, Jawed, you said you had 200 people in your database?
That's right.
Okay, so let's look at your number. So if we take 200 times 0.6, that's 12, and half of them times 0.5. So about 6 of them are you should get business from in 2020. How much business did you say you needed in total? How many appointments?
Appointments, 2 seller appointments a month.
And then 2 buyer appointments a month.
And 2 buy, so 4 appointments a month.
So that's 48. If I take 4 times 12 is 48.
Yep.
So 6 of those are going to come from your database. Are you, calling them and emailing them and doing, the different touch campaigns that we have available in Command?
Great question. So I'm currently manually doing all the follow-up. I have like the pre-built campaigns. I have a couple people on them, but I want to create smart plan that has more touches. So that's actually one of my tasks that I need to do is create a 42 touch custom smart plan.
Okay. And out of all the plans we already have, one of them won't work for you. You've got to create your own?
No, that's not what I'm saying. They definitely would work, and I want to put them on there. I haven't done it yet, so that's another one of my tasks. I have to put the pre-built. I only have a few people on smart plans. Most of them, I'm just manually touching everyone.
Okay. So if you know you're going to generate from your database right now 6 sales, and you need 48 sales. So if I take 48 minus 6, right, that means I need to generate 42 more sales. So I've got to increase my database in order to get to that type of a number. So if I work the math again, if I need 42 more sales, and I've got to look at, well, how many more people do I need to get into my database so that I can generate 42? If we go back to that 6%, if I take 42 divided by 6, I'm looking at I need about 700 people in my database. Okay, you've got 200?
Yeah, I've got 200.
Okay, so basically you're going and you want to add 700 more, that would get you up to 900.
Yes.
Because those 200 are going to give us 6 sales. Now I need 700 more leads so that I can generate 42 more sales. So I can look at, well, what does that look like if I divide that by 12? It's about 58 a month. If I divide that by 4, it's about 14 a week. So you're going to, if I go back to this, add each week about 14 people.
James Shaw's teaching this in 2 weeks, which his is going to be more powerful. So I'm listening. This is a free.
I couldn't hear that, Patty. I'm sorry. Hello? Okay, I couldn't hear that.
Yeah, I think they were just unmuted. So yeah, so if I were to generate 700 more leads, that's ultimately and at that point I would need to have the smart plan situation figured out before I go about generating more leads, right?
Right. So now we have to look at, right, you have to understand, like that's all down here, these touch campaigns for leads versus contacts. So leads are someone that really you're not in, you've met, but really you're not in any kind of a relationship with. Where your contacts are people you can call, you can chat about, how are their kids, their favorite sport team, you have more of a relationship with. These people you're really still trying to get into relationship. So for you, one of your goals is going to be to really go on some training classes, figure out smart plans so that becomes an automatic. They go into command, bam, I put them on a smart plan, set it and forget it.
Yes, that's what I want.
Right. So, but that's going to be one of your goals for this year. Another one will be considering, well, where am I going to generate those leads from? And earlier, and I don't know if you were on the call then, but
I was.
Okay, so we talked about, lead gen activities. Pick really maybe 4 to master. Okay, pick 4. Rather than being like jack of all trades, Gary has looked at historically the most successful agents only pick a few of these and master those. And that's where they generate. It's kind of that 80-20 rule. That's where they generate the majority of their leads from. So what kind of things do you do now to generate leads?
So I've been testing, I've been working with a few different things. I've been doing for sale, expired. So basically cold calling. I've also been door knocking. Open, and I just started messing with command and Facebook leads.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. So those are terrific. So going back down to your 411, let me go back up here. So it really should be looking at, what that goal is, and then your monthly goals and weekly goals in terms of door knocking, command, Facebook leads, expireds, is that prospecting an hour a day, FISBOs. So in order to generate those 700, your goal this in 2021 is to increase your database by 700 leads.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're also then converting those leads into contacts through those smart plans. Part of those smart plans is picking up the phone, right?
Yep.
So, you've got to have the time for that. So this is hopefully giving you clarity on what you need to do so that at the end of 2021, you have $100,000 in the bank. Sound good?
Yes, ma'am. Very, very good.
Good. So we talked about, your homework then is to figure out how many contacts you need in your database in order to get all those appointments that you need to set. And then from there, it's really work on your conversion, work on getting those leads, converting them into contacts, converting list appointments into list agreements, buyer appointments into buyer loyalty agreements, and then and then with a buyer, setting expectations so that you can convert them into a sale. Right now, when I'm working with buyers, I explain to them that prices homes are selling at or slightly above or slightly below the list price. So if we don't like the list price, let's not look at that house. Okay, so I don't want to waste my time or their time looking at $400,000 homes if they think they can offer $350,000 for. So part of that is conversion, setting those expectations. The beauty of KW, we have tons of classes on how to convert better. And I'm sure there were agents in your market center that can also assist you with that. So here, then you're going to fill in your plan for getting those leads into your database. The first step here, we figured out how many appointments do we need to go on? Then we looked at our database and said, well, how many more contacts do we need in our database in order to get those appointments? And then what are some of the plans we're going to do in terms of what are those 4 lead gen sources that we really want to master? What training are we going to need so that we can get better at that? And then we talked a lot earlier about, okay, well, your expenses. So we're saying that if you're going to make, $100,000, you're going to have about 60% in expenses. So you're actually going to need to sell $250,000 in order to make 100. But we can then go and look at, well, really, what are my expenses? If I'm looking at $250,000, I'm probably not going to need a listing specialist or a buyer specialist. So my cost of goods sold is going to be more my office expenses in terms of the royalty and the company dollar that I give to KW, as well as historically the referrals that I paid to other agents. So this is probably going to be a lot less than 30%. And then I'm going to look at my operating expenses in terms of compensation to me, as well as to other salaried employees? And how much am I spending on lead generation, which could include like mailing out postcards? How much do I spend on rent, education, office supplies? Now these numbers are, if you're looking at netting $1 million a year, so you have to gross 2.5 million a year, okay? However, you can go over here and go back up to what I would suggest you do later is come up to this example. And this. So, you know, let's say you want to gross 250. Well, that's somewhere between 150 and 340. So roughly my cost of goods sold should be 13 to about 26%. So you could put in 20% for an example. And then your expenses should be somewhere between 38 and 36%. Now, what should those expenses be? Well, down here, salary and benefits, professional services, that might be your accountant. You know, you might have someone doing some sort of listing management, like maybe you're pay, you know, an admin to do some part-time listing management for you. Prospecting and marketing, this is typically one of the bigger expenses. So that could be your command Facebook ads, your rent, education and coaching. So it's giving you kind of a range of what your expenses should be. So you can figure out which GCI is closest to what you want to earn. So for you, Joette, it's going to be, you wanted 250 in gross commission income. So you're going to be somewhere in the middle in here. So you can then, and for Patty, you're going to be around 500. So you're going to be kind of in this box. So you can take this and copy it into here and then say, okay, well, is it realistic? Maybe I don't have an office. Maybe you work out of your house. So maybe your office expenses will be lower than what the MREA says. But this, again, ink makes you think. So take a look at those, at the model, pick the one that's closest to what you want in terms of gross commission income, see what that looks like, and then put together your actual budget. You can also look at if you have a P&L for this year, you can, or a budget, you can look at those numbers. So this will be your homework, okay? This is a big key. You don't want to make all this money and spend it all. You really want to take a look at where your money is going. Can you do this for your homework?
Absolutely. I am going to do this for my homework.
Good. So that's your budget. And your budget is really another way of looking at a P&L. A P&L is just looking at what your total income is. This is your total gross commission income. If you do a little bit in commercial, a little bit in residential, you can split it up. Most of you probably are just residential. You can look at that cost of sales. And again, you know, if you don't have a buyer agent or a listing agent, that's probably going to be low. You can then look at these operating expenses, which is the same as this info right here. So that will give you your profit. So again, if I'm going to sell 250,000, I want to have a profit of at least 40%. So if I take 250 times 0.4, that's $100,000. So where's that other 150 going? I made 250. That's all your expenses. And again, you might be able to shrink those down and even end up with a little bit more at the end of the year.
Denise, I have
That
a
would be
question.
great.
Yes.
It's kind of like an aha. Earlier when we were going over, your average commission, we should factor in the commission in general because we're already calculating the operating expenses and the cost of sales. So it should be the full commission, not the commission after our cut, correct?
Yes, thank you. I should have mentioned that earlier. That would be your average commission before.
My numbers seem so much more doable now.
Yay! Okay, good.
Thank you.
And then from there, think about the organization that you're going to need to help you get to that income goal. So if you're at 250,000 in gross commission income or 500,000 in gross commission income, what type of organization are you going to need to assist you? And you might want to look at, well, other people in the office that are doing that level of income. What does their organization look like? Maybe chat to them and see. Or go to a class on career visioning where we talk about these organization structures. But at a minimum, you might want to think about where is your level of mastery in terms of lead gen, buyer and seller presentations, negotiating contracts, coordinating the sale, managing the money, hiring, and again, they're talking again, go to that career visioning, training, and accountability. So you might find that it's enough to write all this down and maybe put it on your wall, and that will keep you accountable. But for most people, you really need to let maybe your significant other know your goal so that on those days when you just don't feel like doing it, they can remind you. Maybe you want a coach. Maybe your team leader can assist you, but maybe there's someone in the office that wants to do a similar gross commission income next year. Maybe you two can be accountable to each other. So that's really a biggie. So think about where you are in these skills and then have a plan as part of your plan for next year. Think about how you're going to improve. If you're not good at presentations, maybe you need to spend some time every day working a presentation script. Okay, if you feel you could improve in conversion, maybe you need to spend more time on scripts. So, things like this. So this is part of your business plan as well. And then ultimately, we're not really going to talk about expansion, but you can think about now maybe your 5-year goal. What does your future organization look like? Have you expanded into different market centers? Have you reached a 7th level? So put that down. Okay, I'm a firm believer that the universe helps you. If you put things down, the universe will help you to get there. The final thing I want to mention, this comes back up to the beginning. If you are calling expireds or FSBOs, please, this is like the very first page of the training material that you'll see when you download this. Make sure you fully understand that do not call Consumer Protection Act, because you and your market center can get into a lot of trouble and a lot of fees, a lot of fines if you violate this. So this is here for you to read through. If you have any questions, then really talk to your team leader about this or your broker so that you don't violate any of these issues with the Do Not Call Act. So today, what have we done? We started out kind of thinking about where are we today? How did we do last year? And I said, if you really want to look for your numbers for last year, you can pull up your this is my multi-year trend. You can take a look at how you're actually doing. This is a report that's available to all KW associates. So you want to have some idea of where you're starting from. And think about your big why, how much money you really need to get out of debt, to have that lifestyle that you want. So that all kind of ties into your big why. Having those big models that can pull you through so that you can achieve your goals. We looked at these economic models, in particular, the first 4. And then we put pen to paper. Hopefully you all did. We looked at what numbers do we need for 2021. We looked at how does that convert to your database. And then we said, let's also focus on the money, on budgeting. And that would also include a P&L. They're very much linked together. And then finally, looking at what things in 2021 do we want to look at mastering in order to help us achieve our goals. So with that, are there any questions? No? I do really hope that all of you take some time to really go through this. Think about what skills you need to work on. Find an accountability partner and make 2021 a terrific year. Hopefully, like Patty said, build off of 2020. It's been fabulous for a lot of people. And, that we're now just coming into season. So, hopefully you can really take that ball and run with it. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me anytime. Again,
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So there's 3 different PDFs. Are they 3 different or it's all the same?
Where are the chats? Let me see here.
It should be the same. I think you just put it multiple times.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
There's an Excel sheet and then there's the clinic.
Okay, that's okay, cool.
There's 2.
Well, I hope you found we've been together for a couple hours this morning. I hope you found it. I know you're all busy. I hope you found this beneficial to kind of sit back and work on your business, or at least think about how to work on your business.
Very helpful. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was so helpful.
Sorry, Dolores.
Good. All right. Well, you guys make it a very productive day.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you. Okay. Keep me posted on how you're doing with your goals next year. Okay.
Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Where?